on Channel 5.
This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. Good evening. The hot presidential campaign got even hotter today, and again it was the understudies, not the men at the top of the ticket, who were causing most of the sparks. The Republican number 2, Dan Quayle, played it low-key today, but in the sharpest attack yet from either side, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, Lloyd Bentsen, lit into Quayle's recent voting record. Our coverage begins with Deborah Potter, who's traveling with Bentsen.
Bentsen took his Republican opponent to task today, suggesting that Dan Quayle is too immature to be vice president. Campaigning in Kentucky, the Democratic candidate also highlighted the National Guard flap by citing his own credentials as a veteran of World War II.
The breadth of experience that I've had, the tests that I've undergone, some of the things happened to me early on in combat make you grow up pretty fast.
Campaign strategists acknowledge that there's a risk in attacking Quayle's personal history, a danger that it could trigger what one aide called the sympathy factor. But they believe that Quayle's record in Congress is fair game. And today, Bentsen hammered Quayle for what he called an about-face, his explanation to a veterans group this week that his vote against a veterans bill was a youthful indiscretion.
My friends, that vote occurred only 5 weeks ago. You know, I really don't think America can risk youthful indiscretion in someone who could become our president at any moment.
In what Bentsen staffers claim was an accident of timing, the two candidates crossed paths today at Lexington Airport, Bentsen striding across the tarmac into a mob scene to greet an apparently startled Quayle. Campaign officials say they'll keep going after Quayle, but they don't want to push too hard. They like having him as a target, as Bentsen made clear when asked if he thinks Quayle will stay in the race. His answer? I hope so. Deborah Potter, CBS News, Lexington, Kentucky.
Setting out for his first day on the road as a solo performer, Dan Quayle's strategy was clear. Get through a day without stumbles or controversy. After flying with his wife Marilyn into Cincinnati on the campaign plane he has named Hoosier Pride, Quayle tested out a joke about the media storm he has endured.
And the captain welcomes Senator Quayle and everybody aboard on Senator Quayle's plane, and y'all even had all my newfound admirers in the news media. They were on the board too.
And that was as close as he came to addressing the questions about his past and his qualifications.
I think we've got those issues behind us. In fact, I know we do, and we're going to turn this thing around now and move forward on the things that we want to talk about, and which are substantive issues.
Stuart Spencer, battle-wizened manager of Ronald Reagan's campaigns, who has been brought aboard to handle Quayle, oversaw the decision to keep him away from reporters' questions. The rookie is learning to keep walking in the face of questions. His first two speeches were dry discourses on government, which did not even mention Michael Dukakis. Having denied charges that he made advances on a woman lobbyist 8 years ago, Quayle today sought to strengthen his image as a family man.
3 good reasons why I'm in public service and want to continue in public service. This is my 14-year-old son, Tucker, my 11-year-old son, Benjamin, my 9-year-old daughter, Corinne.
In a speech to National Guard members in St. Louis tonight, Quayle will say that his Vietnam-era service in the Guard is nothing that he deserves a pat on the back for, but nothing that he's ashamed about either. Eric Engberg, CBS News, St. Louis.
Ronald Reagan and George Bush stood side by side today for the first time since last week's convention. Mr. Reagan praised Bush at a rally in Los Angeles as a man of action accustomed to command who found it tough to be vice president. Bill Plant now with more on that.
President Reagan's first joint campaign appearance with George Bush was in California, a state whose 47 electoral votes both parties considered so crucial in the coming election that the battle and the rhetoric are already intense. Bush, citing profound differences of values, fired back at his opponent in the latest of a series of tit-for-tat exchanges over Dukakis' veto of a bill requiring students to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
It is very hard for me to imagine that the Founding Fathers, Samuel Adams and John Hancock, would have objected to teachers leading students in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States.
The president laid into the Democrats with partisan glee, charging that the opposition doesn't know left from center.
They talk about reaching for the center, but on issues like national defense, they've taken positions that only a McGovern could love.
For the first time in a week, the vice president wasn't defending his controversial running mate, Dan Quayle, leaving that task to Mr. Reagan.
And I must confess, I like your running mate, too. He has many more years of experience in dealing with national security issues than the head of the other ticket.
The president was joined in his counteroffensive for Quayle by other politicians and celebrities.
The reason that the Dukakis campaign is so busy trashing Dan Quayle is that they're afraid to discuss issues that are really important to the American people.
He didn't join the Canadian National Guard. He joined our National Guard.
One Democrat says it's no accident that Quayle's defense is being left to others.
I imagine that George Bush would rather be associated with Ronald Reagan than with Quayle right now.
Sources close to the Bush campaign say there's no move to dump Quayle, which they now think would be suicidal in any case. On the contrary, they're expecting a backlash in Quayle's favor after a week of bad press. They do concede that if Quayle himself is still an issue after Labor Day, then the campaign could be in big trouble. Bill Plant, CBS News, Los Angeles.
More details on Quayle and the Guard today. The Indiana National Guard said that when unemployed truck driver Stephen Morrell, who served with Dan Quayle, applied to join in May of 1969, it took 3 days for him to be sworn in. Quayle applied the same month, and it took 11 days for him to be sworn in. We have more on the controversy now from Pentagon correspondent David Martin.
The Indiana National Guard was 34 soldiers under strength when Dan Quayle enlisted in May of 1969. That according to figures released by the Pentagon, figures which would seem to show that Quayle needed no special favors to find a slot that would save him from the draft and duty in Vietnam. However, records on file in Indiana show the State Guard was slightly over strength, by 52 soldiers to be exact. If that's so, why was there room for Dan Quayle? National Guard spokesmen are unable to explain the discrepancy in the figures, but say whatever the overall number, some units in the Indiana Guard were under strength. Young men who wanted to join the National Guard had to find those units with vacancies before the draft found them. That's why phone calls were made, one in particular by the managing editor of the family-owned newspaper, who also happened to be a former commander of the Guard.
I called up the Adjutant General's office and asked him if they had a place for Dan Quayle, who's a fine young man.
Major General Alfred Honor took it from there.
I went to the personnel section and inquired as to whether we had any spaces. They indicated we had plenty of spaces available. So I said, well, hold one until he gets over here.
Official records show the headquarters unit Quayle joined was authorized 138 men and had only 132 assigned.
Dan Quayle's connections clearly helped him join the Guard, but documents released here and in Indiana indicate he might have made it without them. After all, about 350 not-so-well-connected young men also joined the Indiana Guard that same year. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
While running mate Benson was hammering away at his opposite number, Michael Dukakis was taking on George Bush and picking up what might prove to be a critical endorsement. Our chief political correspondent Bruce Morton now with more on that.
All in favor, please rise.
The 14 million member AFL-CIO today unanimously endorsed Michael Dukakis and Lloyd Benson. It was not a surprise. Accepting the endorsement, Dukakis endorsed a labor wish list, higher minimum wage, job retraining, tougher enforcement of work safety rules. And he launched some of his sharpest attacks yet on George Bush's version of Reaganomics.
Yes, today we have more people working in this country than at any time in our history. But average family income in the United States of America, as all of you know, is right where it was in real terms 20 years ago.
Bush's New Orleans acceptance speech, Dukakis said, never mentioned the budget deficit nor the trade deficit.
And to add insult to injury, he wants to cut taxes for the wealthy again. You know, if this were a movie, we'd call it Son of Voodoo.
What Bush did say was that his goal is 30 million new jobs in the next 8 years. But his top economic advisors have backed away from that, saying it probably couldn't be achieved. In Lexington, Kentucky, Lloyd Benson agreed.
The only way you get the 30 million jobs is you did away with the Border Patrol, moved 1/3 of Mexico here. That's the only way you do it. Or you raise the working age to 80.
So the Democrats have organized labor's endorsement, but how much is that worth nowadays?
4 years ago, Labor endorsed Walter Mondale, but opponents called Labor just one more special interest group, and a lot of union members backed Ronald Reagan. 1988 may be different.
Dukakis gets a lot of the advantage of labor support and very little disadvantage. Organized labor is going to run a hard campaign against George Bush, and Dukakis will benefit from that.
Union members aren't as big a percentage of the workforce as they used to be, but they are still a group Dukakis will need if he's to win. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Government today reported that the U.S. trade deficit narrowed 14.9% in the year's second quarter. That's a record high level of exports, which helped produce the biggest improvement in the nation's trade picture in more than 5 years. Well, still ahead on the CBS Evening News, Gary Reeves with a report on mob muscle on entertainers and sports stars, and John Blackstone will report on the fires that threaten a major settlement in Yellowstone National Park.
After flying so many aircraft, I'm not easily impressed with car performance. Then I drove the Cutlass Supreme pace car at the Indy 500. I was impressed.
In USAC tests, Cutlass Supreme out-cornered the BMW 325 and braked better than the Ford Thunderbird LX. And the Cutlass Supreme costs a whole lot less.
So I got 3 of them. Hey, I got 2 kids, boys.
And now Oldsmobile will buy the air conditioning for you when you buy a 1988 Cutlass Supreme by September 28th.
Dazzling savings, now at Color Tile's fantastic home sale. Every in-stock ceramic floor tile is on sale. This stylish ceramic just 59 cents. This elegant floral only 89 cents. Save on a huge selection of vinyl tile, just 79 cents for this beautiful look. And every in-stock Armstrong Sundial Solarian sheet vinyl, now at great savings. Only at Color Tile's fantastic home sale, and only for 4 days. Come to Color Tile and bring the beauty home.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
X-Lax presents a gentle guarantee. A guarantee that X-Lax works gently by 8 a.m. when taken at bedtime or your money back. A promise you can count on. X-Lax, guaranteed complete relief by 8 a.m.
In Chicago today, an 18-month investigation resulted in charges ranging from racketeering to perjury. More than 40 of the people allegedly involved avoided prosecution by promising to perform community service and refund money. At the center of the story are former college athletes and the agents charged with coercing and corrupting them. Gary Reeves reports.
Prosecutors today announced indictments against 3 talent agents, accusing 2 of them, Norby Walters and Lloyd Bloom, of conspiring with Michael Francese to use mob muscle to get contracts to represent top stars of stage and sport.
Walters and Bloom used the reputation of Francese and his efforts as a reputed member of an organized crime family in New York to assist them in obtaining the business and conducting the business of sports agents.
The talent agents are accused of using threats in an unsuccessful attempt to take over booking of the Jackson 5's 1981 tour and to influence other acts.
They utilized the reputation of Michael Francese as a member of an organized crime family in order to obtain that business.
Prosecutors charge the agents gave cash and gifts to dozens of college athletes in exchange for the right to represent them in future negotiations with pro teams. Players who backed out were threatened.
They specifically told certain of the athletes that they would break their legs.
Only one athlete, Chris Carter of Ohio State, is being prosecuted for fraud and obstruction of justice. He is now cooperating with the investigation. The government has agreed not to prosecute 43 other college stars who took payments, including Brent Fullwood of Auburn and Ronnie Harmon of Iowa. Carter faces 10 years. The others will do community service and will pay back their scholarships. These indictments are the latest attempt to clean up college football, where the illegal payments had become common.
It's getting closer to being cleared up, and like I say, there's still some agents out there doing it, but I think that this should scare them and put a stop to it.
Both the National Football League and the NCAA say they are cooperating with the investigation, which prosecutors say will continue. Gary Reeves, CBS News, Chicago.
Faced with a raging forest fire, officials in Yellowstone National Park today shut down a second major hotel and a campground complex. Hot, dry weather and high afternoon winds in Yellowstone and other parts of the West now threaten to make an already devastating fire season even worse. John Blackstone now.
The stubborn forest fires in Yellowstone National Park are for the first time threatening one of the major settlements in the park. Flames are advancing toward Canyon Village as firefighters work to establish a fire line around the complex of stores, administration buildings, and cabins. Vacations there came to an abrupt end this morning.
Excuse me, ma'am, may I speak to you for a moment? Yeah. We're asking everyone to evacuate right now, and I need to secure your keys from you at this time.
More than 700 tourists and park employees were told to leave Canyon Village, the largest housing complex in the park.
It's a little bit exciting. You know, my husband's enjoying the fire trucks.
The decision to close Canyon Village came last night as fire moved within 2 miles of the settlement. This is one of 7 fires now burning in Yellowstone. In all, more than 350,000 acres have been burned over inside the park. But that leaves some 2 million acres of Yellowstone not on fire, and tourists can still visit Old Faithful and Mammoth Hot Springs. Fighting the fires in this famous national park has become a national effort. Firefighters have been brought in from as far away as New Jersey, Florida, and Texas to join almost 4,000 others on the lines in Yellowstone. And throughout the West, so many firefighters are at work this summer that national coordinators are struggling to find extra people to fight new fires. This is the worst fire season in the western states in 20 years. More than 1 million acres have been lost, an area the size of Delaware. And in Alaska, 2 million acres have been burned over. Most of the fires are not out yet, and the season isn't over. More fires are still expected. John Blackstone, CBS News, Salt Lake City.
In Huntington Beach, California today, there was a joyful meeting between family members and the fire dispatcher they credit with saving the life of a 1-year-old boy. Last Thursday, little Travis Scott fell into the family hot tub, where he was submerged for almost a minute. When he failed to respond to treatment, the family called the fire department, and dispatcher Dennis Kidd gave instructions to the boy's grandmother, who relayed them to the child's mother.
You know how long it was in the pool?
Just a few minutes.
Okay, I want you to
But he's blue.
listen to me. Completely cover the child's mouth and nose with your mouth.
Cover his mouth and nose with your mouth.
And blow 2 soft puffs of air into his lungs, okay? Like you're filling up a small balloon, okay?
All right.
So the chest is rising?
Yes.
Okay, now just keep doing that. Have her take a breath and then give the baby a breath.
We're getting a noise out of him, but I don't know if he's...
Okay, is that the baby crying?
Yes. Oh, his collar's back. Oh, God.
The mother, the child, and the dispatcher all reported doing just fine today.
Looking for whole wheat total?
Oh, Special K.
Hope you're hungry, because you'll need almost 3 boxes of Special K to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of total.
Maybe grape nuts.
You'll have to put away 4 boxes.
Okay. Shredded wheat.
12 boxes. Total, 1 bowl, 100%. No other cereal has more vitamin and mineral nutrition.
I think I'll have... Total, sweetheart. Total.
If it's whole wheat total, it's total nutrition.
And I don't want anyone driving my XT while I'm away. Do you understand?
The new Subaru XT6 has a powerful 6-cylinder engine, computerized full-time 4-wheel drive, and a design which makes it hard to resist.
Somebody drove my car. Who was it?
Get up to $1,500 cash back or 4.9 financing on a Subaru.
The truth is, heart specialists concerned about aspirin irritation recommend Ecotrin over Bayer to help prevent second heart attack. Consult your doctor about the only brand of aspirin that's safety coated to protect your stomach. That's Ecotrin, and that's the truth.
Suddenly Salad proposes 3 exciting new leisure activities. Pasta Primavera with broccoli, ranch and bacon, and Caesar with croutons.
Suddenly Salad. Suddenly Salad.
Live high.
The new president of Burma yielded to mass protests today and promised immediate steps to restore democracy. The president called on the ruling party to authorize general elections as soon as possible, and he said none of the present rulers would run for office. The collapse of Burma's one-party system followed months of protests and riots, culminating with peaceful marches by millions this week. The United States had unusually sharp words for Israel today, protesting its decision to expel 25 more Palestinians from the occupied territories. If the decision is carried out, it would make 60 deportations this year. The State Department said that will not help bring peace to the Middle East. Bob Simon reports.
Prime Minister Shamir met U.S. Ambassador Pickering to discuss the American protest, the first warning that Israel's policies in the territories could threaten U.S.-Israeli relations. That was this morning. This afternoon, the State Department escalated the war of words.
We are shocked by the government of Israel's decision to expel an additional 25 Palestinians.
Washington says if they're guilty, charge them, and that expulsions such as these carried out last week are not only wrong but counterproductive. The families of the men would agree.
This will not stop the Intifada. That will give it more struggle to continue.
It certainly continued today. A general strike called by underground leaders paralyzed the West Bank and Gaza, which at times seemed almost apocalyptic. Israelis say that since Palestinians view deportation as the worst possible punishment, it is the most effective. State Department, thanks for the advice.
When it comes to our life and security, Israel will take independently all the necessary measures.
We found that this is a very effective and humane measure.
And popular. Deportation may be a dirty word in Washington, but it's a vote-getter in Jerusalem. A poll this week shows that more than 60% of Israelis want the iron fist policy toughened. With elections coming up, politicians advocating a soft approach are getting harder to find. So electoral politics are fighting against any politics of peace. Diplomatic sources say the Americans decided to speak out now because of their fear that any possible Palestinian partners for negotiations are being deported or detained. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
Riot police broke up 2 strikes in Poland today, but shipyard and port workers held out in Gdansk, and opposition leaders claimed another coal mine and a factory joined the strike movement. 100,000 workers have walked out in the last week, demanding higher pay and legalization of the Solidarity trade union.
Mom sure make life easier. Mine did. Like another mom, Phillips Milk of Magnesia. Phillips' mom helps your body work naturally for easy overnight relief. Even has this convenient dosage cup. Nobody treats you better than Mom.
In a new survey, we asked 1,000 doctors if stranded in the middle of nowhere, would they want Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? Doctors chose Bayer, 3-1 over extra strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Pat Van Patten and Sally Struthers.
Antique cars are still around because their owners always change the oil. Back then you had to do it yourself. Remember? But today there's Jiffy Lube. In 10 minutes the J-Team changes the oil with quality Pennzoil. Here comes a Pennzoil. Replaces the filter, fill the fluids, and lubes the chassis. Want your car to last? Welcome to Jiffy Lube. Pat, meet my antique. Sally, meet mine.
Now there are 1,000 Jiffy Lubes coast to coast to serve you better.
Plaque fighting, Cepacol mint.
But how does it taste?
Tastes great.
Refreshing. A mint that lasts.
New Cepacol mint mouthwash.
Dazzling savings, now at Color Tile's Fantastic Home Sale. Every in-stock ceramic floor tile, every in-stock Armstrong Sundial Solarian sheet vinyl, and a huge vinyl tile selection, all on sale now. For 4 days only at Color Tile. Bring the beauty home.
A New England community today confronts a grave national threat. Arson and suspected arson account for the largest single cause of property damage due to fire in the United States. But in addition to the threat to life and the loss of property, there's a special terror to the suspicion that the arsonist might be a small-town neighbor. Betsy Aaron reports.
The sun is about to set over Jefferson, New Hampshire. Before the fires began, for the 850 people who live here, it was a time to relax, eat a meal, go to sleep. Not anymore.
You've got everybody in town right now that's manning watches in their houses. I get up 2 o'clock every morning right now.
You can almost feel the fear. Fear that the arsonist is among them, one of their own.
We'd look at everybody and say, was it you? Did you start our fire? You know, did you burn down our home?
The only change is you got to widen that bathroom out because of the window.
Bruce Hartford's house was the 13th to burn since May. He's already rebuilding on the ruins of the old one.
There's just nothing we could do. You know, it was 100% gone when, like I said, when the fire department got hit.
State police cars patrol Jefferson continuously now. The FBI and State Fire Marshal's office try to break the case, but the level of frustration is obvious.
We'll spend hours a day, hours in the evening, you know, looking at the map and again trying to figure out what might be the next target.
Arsonists burn their evidence. At Helen Merrill's house, there was hardly anything left to sift through.
I saved 2 pocketbooks, which were right beside my bed, and 3 other bags of things that were not too far away. And that's it.
Yesterday, another fire, the 19th, put out by a neighbor who just happened to stop by.
Unlike the rest of the fires, we have some evidence we feel we can work with.
The break you were looking for, maybe?
Well, if there's such a thing as feeling good in a case like this, let me just say what I've seen so far, yes, I do feel good.
But Helen Merrill can't feel good yet because the arsonist is too close.
They know everything. They know when people turn off their lights, or even when they don't. I can sleep till 3, maybe 4, and most every night I'm awake from then on.
And what goes through your mind?
Fire, fire.
And standing on the site of his future, Bruce Hartford contemplates the past.
I'd just like to know why I was singled out.
Even when the why is answered, there is fear that somehow this New England town will never be the same. Betsy Aaron, CBS News, Jefferson, New Hampshire.
And that's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, sitting in again tonight for Dan Rather. Good night.
New Supercol Mint kills plaque germs.
But how does it taste?
Supercol Mint fights plaque buildup.
But how does it taste?
Plaque fighting, Supercol Mint.
But how does it taste?
Tastes great.
Like my mouth took a shower.
Refreshing. A mint that lasts.
The best tasting way we know to fight plaque.
Priced an imported car lately? You could be in for import sticker shock. Or a pleasant surprise at your Buick dealer, Buick Century. It's actually priced under smaller imports like Toyota Camry Deluxe and Honda Accord DX. It's loaded with standard features, like room for 6, stereo, even a real trunk. That's more car for the money. That's the value of the Century.
Save up to $1,300 on Buick Century Custom Sedan.
Heartburn?
Oh, I'm dying.
You're not dying.
You can die from a meatball hero.
Better take my Riopan Plus 2.
Riopan Plus 2 starts neutralizing acid in 10 seconds.
Oh, look who's feeling better.
I'm not dying.
Riopan Plus 2, the fast antacid.
Raisin Nut Bran tastes better. Tastes better than Kellogg's, better than Post. It's got juicy nut-covered raisins and big, crisp flakes.
People have a better time around Raisin Nut Bran.
The best tasting Raisin Bran.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Faith Daniels. Tomorrow, the families of the Challenger astronauts look ahead to the flight of Discovery.
Friday, Arthur Ashe and Jodie Foster on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
I'm John Lindgren. Next on Eyewitness News, another scandal hits the Metro Police Department, this time at the Academy. Construction begins on a fence around the Metro parking lot where a woman was abducted and raped yesterday. And the vice presidential contenders go head-to-head in the Bluegrass State. Those stories and more next.